The USMNT roster for October World Cup qualifying games against Jamaica, Panama, and Costa Rica has dropped. There are some things to like, there are some things to question, and we're going to be doing just that right here in this video. What up guys, I'm Pete Douthit, this is 11 Yanks. We are a channel exclusively focused on USMNT and the American soccer landscape. If you're new, do not forget to subscribe. We have 2, sometimes 3 videos a week. If you're here, most of you know me already, smash that like button guys, and we're gonna get right into it. So the first thing I have to say about this roster is that it is too small. We learned in the September window that 3 games in 1 week with all the travel and all the CONCACAFing and all the hacking leads to injuries, and you're gonna need rotation, so bring a big roster. There is no real limit on how many players you can bring. So instead of 26, we bring the grand total of 27. Very baffling, and it tells me that Gregg did not learn from the last window where we did get a lot of injuries and it did hurt us. Literally, the bare minimum for competence in this roster would have been to bring 30 players at the very least, especially because some of the guys from England like Ream and Antonee Robinson and Zack Steffen won't be able to go down to the Panama game. So we'll be going down with 22 or 23 players if nobody gets injured between now and then. So that is my first issue with this roster. It's too small, and it looks like we didn't learn anything from September, and fingers crossed we can only hope that none of these guys get injured in the first game, because if we do, we're going to be thin at several different positions. The other thing I want to talk about is who on this roster should be under scrutiny, and we'll get into that, but the truth is that everybody on a USMNT roster should be under scrutiny, more especially the guys who are on the fringe, because those are the ones over whom there is some debate if they should even be on this roster. The logic of mostly the roster is fine, so we shouldn't gripe about 4 or 5 different players doesn't really hold up to me, because every single person who gets called up to the national team should be under scrutiny. So without further ado, let's dive into the roster. Starting off with goalkeepers, we have Matt Turner, Zack Steffen, and Sean Johnson. Ethan Horvath was the goalkeeper left off this roster. I'm a little surprised that Gregg didn't bring 4 keepers, but I understand Sean Johnson's inclusion because Zack Steffen very likely won't be able to travel to Panama, so you're going to need at least 2 goalkeepers. I don't have any real major issues with this. The one benefit of Ethan Horvath being left off is that he will hopefully be with Nottingham Forest trying to win that starting job, and that may benefit him in the future. That being said, if either Matt Turner or Sean Johnson gets injured in that opening game, we may go down to Panama with just 1 goalkeeper. Is that wise? Is that a risk we want to take? In my opinion, no, although I suppose if one of them does get injured, we could call somebody up from MLS as a replacement to sit on the bench, if indeed Gregg would actually do that. Overall, no real complaints about the goalkeepers, although I probably would have brought 4. Fullbacks, we have Yedlin, Dest, Antonee Robinson, George Bello, and Shaquell Moore. Now, Robinson, Dest, Yedlin, and Bello were all in the September roster. Moore is the addition, and Moore is really a baffling one to me. He has played a grand total of 59 minutes in the Spanish second division this season, whereas a guy like Joe Scally has played every minute in the Bundesliga and performed really far above expectation. I don't really understand why Shaquell Moore is here over Joe Scally. He wasn't terrible in the Gold Cup. He wasn't great either. He was distinctly average, and he's clearly not in form or fully fit playing for his club. So if you're going to bring in a 5th fullback, I don't understand leaving Joe Scally out for Shaquell Moore. Antonee Robinson had a very strong September camp, and we'll be looking for him to have yet another one. Hopefully Sergino Dest starts on the right. Yes, I know that he had a good game for Barcelona last week playing on the left fullback spot, but we all know that for the USMNT, he's so much better playing on the right. Can he lock himself down defensively? That is something that remains to be seen. George Bello started against Honduras and lost his man for the Honduras goal. He'll be looking to make up for that if he gets any playing time at all in this roster. And DeAndre Yedlin did get burned by Alphonso Davies against Canada, but other than that, I thought had a mainly solid shift. Can get forward, can put a cross in, still a little weak defending 1v1, but I'd say that most of our fullbacks are, which makes it even more baffling that Joe Scally is not here, because that's been one of his strengths playing in the Bundesliga this season, is his 1v1 defending. I don't really understand that, Gregg. The only real rationale for Shaquell Moore is familiarity. Gregg knows him, having had him in Gold Cup, but I'm not sure that familiarity is a good enough reason to bring somebody in when the levels in performance between him and Scally are that drastic at this time. Center backs, we have John Brooks, Mark McKenzie, Miles Robinson, Tim Ream, and Chris Richards. So it's very exciting to see Chris Richards back after being excluded in the month of September. James Sands and Walker Zimmerman are not here. They are guys who were in the September roster, but are not in this one. Tim Ream continues to be here for reasons. Miles Robinson, Mark McKenzie, and Chris Richards can all deputize for John Brooks. Matt Miazga is an interesting one that was left off. He's been performing well for Alaves in La Liga since his move, but apparently that has not been enough to convince Gregg Berhalter. Miles Robinson had a really strong camp in September, as well as a really strong Gold Cup, and that right center back spot is going to be his to lose. John Brooks did not have a very good camp in September, and he is going to have to pick up his game and show in October that he deserves to continue to start. Because any more errors from him, and Chris Richards and Mark McKenzie are both looking to grab that spot. I've said many times that Tim Ream is on the decline, and whatever intangibles, such as leadership, that he brings do not make up for his lack of actual ability at his age, so I am baffled by his inclusion. But if you want Tim Ream on the roster, you could easily have added Matt Miazga here, or even Walker Zimmerman here, just to have more options. What I think this center back core tells us is that we probably won't see a back three with this few center backs, but I could be wrong about that. We don't really know what Gregg is going to do. At some point, I would like to see a back three of Chris Richards, Miles Robinson, and John Brooks, because I think that could be huge. It would allow John Brooks to play centrally and step into midfield and sort of quarterback the game as a 6, which is something that he's very good at, while having both Richards and Robinson behind him to cover. Will we see that at some point in this camp? I'm not sure. My guess is no, but I would love to see it. Midfielders, and this is an interesting one. We have Tyler Adams, Weston McKennie, Cristian Roldan, Yunus Musah, Sebastian Lletget, Kellyn Acosta, Luca de la Torre, and Gianluca Busio. Guys, it is great to see both Yunus Musah and Luca de la Torre back in this roster. Both of them bring a lot from a technical perspective to this midfield, and Luca de la Torre specifically will add a lot of creativity if he gets minutes. And that's really the question in this midfield: who is going to get the lion's share of minutes? Obviously, we know Tyler Adams will, very likely Weston McKennie will as well, and very quickly, Weston McKennie has to prove himself again. After his blunder in the last camp, you all know about it. I don't think we should hold it against him, but he is going to have to show that as a leader for this team, he can make up for what he did with some strong performances on the pitch. Kellyn Acosta will likely be Tyler Adams' backup. No issues there. I'm curious to see how many minutes Yunus Musah will get. He did not get any minutes in the Nations League, which was baffling to a lot of us, and we'll see how much Gregg uses him. I would be open to seeing a Weston McKennie, Yunus Musah dual 8 partnership, but I'd also like to see Luca de la Torre in that role. Gianluca Busio is somebody that I said on the Sunday stream that I was ambivalent about him being in this roster. My questions about Busio are, where do you play him? In my opinion, in CONCACAF, I don't think he's ready to play the 6. I just think he will get bullied a little too much, or little brothered, as some people like to say. His physicality is not quite up to snuff, but I'm not sure that he's really an 8 either. I'm ambivalent about him being here. I have no issues with him being here, and I'm definitely curious on how Gregg plans to use him. I know he has made progress since moving to Venezia in Italy, and if he does see the field at all, I'll be watching him closely. Cristian Roldan, guys, 28 caps, 0 goals, 1 assist. Lots of people talk about his hustle. That's great. You should have more than hustle to be on the national team, especially if you're playing as an attacker. And really, guys, the issue with some of the guys I don't think should be on this roster is not that they can never score a goal or get an assist or win a tackle or do something good. Most players, if you leave them on the field long enough, will eventually do something that you can point to and say, look, he did this in this game, therefore that justifies his call-up. No. The problem with a guy like Roldan is that he isn't consistently effective enough to justify the amount of minutes that he's gotten compared to some of the better options available. That is the best way that I can articulate it. Sebastian Lletget is a guy that I have been repeatedly critical of for not being penetrative or incisive enough in midfield and often being more of a passenger. In the last camp against Honduras, he came on and had a pretty good 45 minutes. Part of that was due to the fact that Honduras got tired. Part of the fact was where he played. If you're going to play Sebastian Lletget, get him higher up the field in the final third, where he can at least try to combine in and around the box. If you put him in midfield, where he has to build out and penetrate through, it's going to be more difficult for him. That's just not his game. Truth be told, I don't really have a problem with Sebastian Lletget being on this roster. In fact, I would be fine with keeping all of these guys if we had added Julian Green. Again, the roster is too small. The more players we have, the better. Not only does it help us with depth, it also allows strong players who are talented to come in to build chemistry, cohesiveness, camaraderie to prepare for that World Cup. So I don't understand why Julian Green has been consistently snubbed by Gregg Berhalter. He is performing well in the Bundesliga. He was Greuther Fürth's best player against Bayern Munich last week. He has World Cup experience. He is versatile enough to play as a midfielder or as a winger. He checks so many boxes. I just don't understand why he continues to be left off. Forwards now, and Gregg Berhalter brings Ricardo Pepi, Tim Weah, Paul Arriola, Matthew Hoppe, Brenden Aaronson, and Gyasi Zardes. Ricardo Pepi will be looking for more starts after scoring a goal and being involved in 3 others in his first ever cap at just 18 years old. Some people are saying that he is our #1 locked-in starter. I disagree. I think that performance against Honduras certainly earned him another start or 2, but he will have to continue to perform if he wants to keep that spot. And guys, he's young. There is variability with young players' performance. Sometimes they will be good, sometimes they won't. We just have to be patient with him. Tim Weah is fresh off a really strong performance last weekend for Lille, where he got an assist and won a penalty and really looked like a strong player. He wasn't hiding like he sometimes does. He provided verticality, he was strong on the ball, he was demanding the ball, he took over the game, and that's really good to see. Paul Arriola is one of Gregg's guys. Gregg likes him, he has him there. He's similar to Roldan in that he will always work hard for you, but lacks real technical ability when time and space are compressed. In his last 11 competitive caps for the US, he has 0 goals and 1 assist. That tells you the story. The last time he scored a goal in a competitive game for the US was against Trinidad and Tobago in the Gold Cup group stage of 2019. Now, if you want to have Paul Arriola here because you think he works hard and because he provides experience, fine. But no Konrad de la Fuente is extremely baffling to me, especially because Pulisic and Reyna are both injured, and we don't have anybody that can really go 1v1 and provide that threat, even off the bench, like a guy like Konrad. To all the people saying he did not perform well against El Salvador, almost nobody performed well against El Salvador. And so you're asking for a player to be left off after one not great performance. It's a real double standard there from Gregg, and it bothers me. Other notable exclusions are Josh Sargent and Jordan Pefok. Now, neither of those guys has performed for the national team when called upon, despite the fact that they are performing in Europe. Yes, I know Josh Sargent hasn't scored for Norwich. He doesn't get a lot of service. He's actually played quite well for them. But I understand if they don't perform for the national team, I understand them being left off. But again, it's down to this. Why are we holding Josh Sargent and Jordan Pefok to that level of accountability, but not Cristian Roldan or Paul Arriola? It doesn't make any sense, and it speaks to Gregg's bias and preferences for his favorite MLS guys. Gyasi Zardes is here. Now, Gyasi Zardes is somebody that I've been critical of in the past, and I don't think has done enough for the national team when called upon. That being said, despite lacking technical ability, the one area of his game that he's really improved over the last few years is his movement in and around the box. He gets in really good positions to be able to score goals, and while he doesn't always finish the easy chances, he does it frequently enough to justify this call-up. I don't think he should start up top over Matthew Hoppe or Ricardo Pepi, but I understand him being in this roster ahead of guys like Josh Sargent or Jordan Pefok. While we're talking about wingers, there's a real lack of width. We only have Aaronson, Weah, and Paul Arriola who can play wide. What this tells me is that Gregg is going to be using Matthew Hoppe as a winger yet again, despite the fact that we all know Matthew Hoppe is a 9. That was true in the Bundesliga, that's true in La Liga. Hoppe himself wants to be a 9. Christian Pulisic has called him a 9, but Gregg is probably going to use him as a winger in this camp. It's disappointing because we don't have enough good options at the 9. Why didn't we bring in Konrad de la Fuente for winger depth and maybe give Hoppe a chance to play at the 9? I'm very curious to see if he'll get any minutes at the 9, but I doubt it. It's possible that Gregg will use Roldan on the wing, which in my opinion is not great. But if it allows Matthew Hoppe to play up top, then at least that is one silver lining. So that's my roster, guys. Tell me what you think in the comments below. Thanks for watching. You guys have a great week, and I will see you on Sunday.